Hello and welcome to our new video where we talk about 17 expressions of sympathy and empathy. Most of us deal with the challenge of finding expressions of sympathy and empathy and then applying them to our daily practice session. We at My By the Book are honored to present our series of 17 expressions of sympathy and empathy so that you can benefit by minimizing your search and being better prepared for an upcoming test. Let's look at what we are going to do in this presentation. For the contents of this presentation, we are going to be looking at 17 expressions which are divided into the following scenarios: driving, breaking bad news, Spike's protocol, non-accidental injury, medical errors, and colleague issues. So I'm going to be taking you through what are some expressions of sympathy and empathy you can use while dealing with such scenarios. Starting with, how do we establish a rapport in such situations? For all of the 6 scenarios mentioned above, please make sure that you introduce yourself, confirm the identity, you are calm, comfortable, and confident. The eye contact with your role player is that of concern. Acknowledge any non-verbal cues that they may present you with, and also take a history. The history needs to be a brief one. It is advisable that you take a history which recaps the events. Right. In our first presentation, we are going to brief you about the approach to a sensitive situation and the phrases you can use. Our first situation is that there's a role player who needs to be counseled about driving. As the DVLA in the UK has certain rules and regulations governing medical conditions in driving, be it a light or a heavy motor vehicle. For those of you who are new to driving, a bicycle, motorcycle, car are placed under light motor vehicles, and a bus, truck is placed under heavy motor vehicles. A role player who may be dependent on driving for their income may find it very difficult to process information regarding how their medical condition may affect their driving. Why is it necessary to abide the rules and regulations concerning driving, and what are their actions of continuing to drive, and how it may impose at the individual as well as the general public level. It would be really desirable by the candidates appearing for a test to approach such scenarios with a soft and sympathetic tone. Voice modulation comes in handy at this moment in time where we are actively dealing with a pandemic and face-to-face consultations are becoming remote by the day. The phrases that you can use are: Mr. X, being unable to drive for a year could cause inconvenience to many people. The next phrase that you can use is: having an uncertain diagnosis of a major or a serious condition is very stressful indeed. How do you demonstrate empathy? To demonstrate empathy to the role players, follow up these phrases by explaining the situations and risks involved in driving. Moving on. Breaking a bad news. Let's dive in and discover breaking bad news. Breaking bad news, delivering a difficult news, doesn't simply imply to deal with disclosing challenging news to the patients or role players. It also deals with effective articulation of interpersonal skills and communication skills to deliver the news the role player or the patient is not hoping for. You might encounter different personalities and would be assigned the task of delivering to them difficult news. Keep in mind that you ought to be as open and honest as possible, keeping usage of medical jargon to a minimum. Imagine if you bought a home with all your savings and the architect speaks to you about single angle measurements, costs, while keeping you from the fact that the home you got with dreams and aspirations is about to crumble, and that this investment just turned out to be an unfavorable one. Nothing compares with life. However, I'm trying to explain the sentiment involved here. Wouldn't it be annoying if you heard jargon and were left to figure it out on your own what's going on with you? Now that you have understood, let's talk about the ethical section of the GMC UK guidance, which talks about breaking bad news. Definitely, there are workshops you can sign up for after the exam. Please make sure not to miss that. Apart from that, you can incorporate simple demonstrations of empathy while breaking a bad news by doing the following: allowing an easy conversation. It is a good idea to free your speech from pressure. Remember that this is something you're doing because you choose to do. You chose to do medicine over the other careers available for you. Now that you have made your choice, try to walk an extra mile and make your career a beautiful one so that you can benefit later in life by having had a satisfying one. Coming back to the demonstration of empathy, please remember that your body language needs to be calm. If you are going to be shaky, then it could be a good idea to ask someone else to talk to this patient. You can excuse yourself by apologizing. However, for the purpose of a test, it could be a good idea to practice such scenarios in a study group or in front of the mirror. It is a very patient-centered approach to avoid medical jargon at all costs. The phrases that you can use are: I understand that these results may have you worried. Allow me to explain what's going on and how it will be managed. You can always ask me any questions or concerns you may have. Do you have any ideas, concerns, or thoughts regarding what's going on with you? After having discussed breaking a bad news, let's move on to discussing about the spikes protocol. This protocol is useful while practicing as a candidate for the test, and later on you can use it to build your strengths regarding dealing with sensitive situations. The spikes protocol consists of setting, perception, invitation, knowledge and information, emotions and empathy, strategy and summary. Let's talk about the setting. It is usually arranged for you when you are about to give a test. After confirmation of identity, it's a good idea to ask if there's anyone the patient or the role player would like for their emotional support. It's also advisable that you use information in chronological order given in the task and recap the events. Perception. Summarize if you haven't done so yet, and it's also a good idea to assess the ICE questionnaire, that is, ideas, concerns, and expectations from this consultation. You can also ask if anyone else has spoken to them before you did. The questions to ask are as follows. What do you know about your condition so far? What's your understanding of it? What do you expect would be the consequence of this? Also, what's your expectation from this consultation? Moving on to invitation. Invite this patient to have a chat about their concern. Ask them if they are okay to open up and have a discussion with you. Knowledge and information. It's always a good idea to speak in short, meaningful, and complete sentences. Be honest, direct, and open-minded. Check their understanding frequently while maintaining a two-way conversation. It is very important that the information you are providing is being comprehended by the role player or the patient. Issue a warning shot or signpost before you ask a question which may alarm your role player or the patient. This is necessary because failing to do so breaks the rapport and professional relationship you have cultivated in a short span of time. Emotions and empathy have their position to be maintained throughout the consultation and not just by incorporating stock phrases. Incorporate the phrases in a step-by-step protocol. Once again, for more guidance regarding this, you can get in touch with us by clicking on any of the links posted below. Strategy and summary. Inform about the plan of care moving forward in their care. Arrange a follow-up appointment after having allowed sufficient time to the patient or the role player to process the information you have given them. Inform them about the support services that may be available to them with leaflets, written information of organizations or representatives who may be helpful. Finish by offering them an opportunity to speak with a senior experienced team member. Moving on. What are some expressions you can use in non-accidental injury and while apologizing in case of a medical error? Let's begin with non-accidental injury. It can be intimidating for new doctors to speak to parents who seem unwelcoming. Discussing the need for safeguarding could be a little daunting. We encourage here that you acknowledge the feelings and emotions of the parents with care and comfort in your voice tone and body language. It's not your duty to pass judgment regarding what's right or wrong here. However, safeguarding children and young adults is your duty as a doctor. Keep an open mind. This will ease the discussion and stress surrounding the impending conversation. It is also recommended that you avoid using threatening words and references such as police, involvement, and court order. It may be a part of the process. However, what is important in a test is for you to explain the parent or the legal guardian that the stay in the hospital is going to benefit the child, as you would be able to document clearly what's going on or what's happened to the child. Moving on to medical errors. How do you offer an apology? An apology in case of a medical error incident consists of 3 parts. Remember that there are 3 parts to the apology, and missing out on any parts of the apology makes it incomplete, which might result in an exaggerated negative response from the role player or the patient. The 3-part apology consists of responding by actively engaging in a conversation to the complaint, being transparent, offering a sincere apology which begins with "I am sorry." The phrases that you can use are, to be honest, no single individual was at fault. There are a number of reasons why this error has occurred. Would you like to speak to another senior team member? This can be arranged after a chat. Along with this, don't forget that giving an opportunity to speak with a senior team member for more clarification regarding the error is completely desirable. Ensure that a complete investigation will be carried out and they would be informed regarding it in the form of letters. You can also offer them to meet with advocacy services in order to get suitable guided advice regarding the matter at hand. Now, let's move on to the last part of our presentation, which deals with colleague issues. As a student preparing for a competitive exam, there was definitely scarcity of such information. For me, this is why I have invested in this really small gesture to change what was a deficit for me into an availability for all of you listening to me or looking at this presentation right now. I'd like to begin this discussion by informing the statements you would need to avoid because technically is grievous to convey what is impossible to achieve. The sentences are as follows. I know how you feel. You will be fine. I am here for you always. Don't worry. It's not possible not to be worried, and it's quite impossible to be there for someone always. The sensible thing to do would be to guide them rather than give them false assurances. The phrases that you can use while speaking to a colleague are as follows. That sounds quite challenging to cope with. Losing a loved one or breaking up with someone is quite difficult. I'm glad you have been comfortable to share this with me. The next phrase that you can use is I'm here because I'm concerned about your habits and how they may affect patient safety. As you may be aware of the good medical practice standards, I would like to speak to you regarding that so we can resolve these issues in time. Do you have any thoughts on how we may proceed in reference to your coming late, or drinking alcohol, or being in a drug habit? These are just some phrases that you can use. I compiled a list of 17 expressions of sympathy and empathy just for you. Now, that being said, if you have watched the video to the end, I'd like to thank you for your patience and cooperation. I truly feel honored. I decided to put these presentations out on my channel because I was given false assurances from colleagues. They decided that a false assurance is better for me than guidance. I would like to dedicate this presentation to those doctors who motivated me to work on this and to put this content so that nobody faces the same situation as I did. Please do like my video, share them, and support me by making any contributions as it helps me bring more content for you. Thank you so much. I hope that this was a useful one, and I'll see you over the live session on Saturday soon. Thank you.